Welcome to a deep dive. For anyone who's ever dreamed of building something new, staring at that blank slate and wondering, how on earth do I get those very first customers?
Right. It's a huge question.
It's pretty much existential for any early stage startup, wouldn't you say? And today we're unpacking the tactical, sometimes kind of counterintuitive truths about attracting users
hmm
and proving demand before you even hit true product market fit. That sweet spot where your product really satisfies a strong market need.
Yeah. And what's really fascinating here, I think, is how often founders get caught up in the idea of scale, big numbers.
Right. Way too early sometimes.
Way too early, before they've truly validated if their product is even, well, a must-have.
Yeah.
So we'll explore why getting those initial users isn't just about numbers, but really about deeply understanding a problem
Okay.
and solving it for real people, especially that high expectation customer we talk about. If you can meet their needs.
Then you know you're onto something.
Exactly. You've likely built something truly valuable.
Absolutely. So forget the fancy launches for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
We're going straight to the gritty stuff, the non-scalable tactics that actually lay the foundation for everything else.
The stuff people sometimes want to skip.
Totally. You'll learn why hearing criticism is actually better than people just ignoring you.
Which sounds weird, but it's true.
And how to use every single interaction, good or bad, to refine your path forward.
Okay, let's dive in.
So let's start with that core challenge.
Hmm?
No customers. Proving demand feels, well, like you're just shouting into the void, right?
It really can.
Our sources really highlight that so much of being a founder, especially early on, is just about finding those very first paying customers. Why is that step so critical before you even think about building growth engines?
Well, connecting it to the bigger picture, it really comes down to resource allocation. You just shouldn't be dedicating significant resources, time, money, people,
Right.
to aggressive growth if your product isn't, on a clear path towards sustainable user engagement and actually creating value.
So focus first.
The emphasis absolutely has to be on finding that fit first, making sure there's a tangible need for what you're building, and then iterating incredibly fast by actually talking to those initial users, finding that discerning high expectation customer who will tell you the truth.
Okay, and this is where it gets really interesting for me, because it feels like it goes against so much startup advice.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to do things that don't scale. I mean, it sounds almost irresponsible.
Yeah, it feels wrong initially.
But the classic example,
Right.
Airbnb, right?
Right.
They famously boosted revenue just by sending Joe Gebbia, one of the co-founders, to New York.
To take photos.
Yeah, to take professional photos of listings simply because the original ones, quote, sucked.
Uh-huh. Yeah, no complex data analysis there.
No data. They just did it. And a week later, that seemingly tiny, non-scalable action had doubled their weekly revenue.
Which was huge for them at the time.
It was the first real improvement they had seen in almost a year, just from doing something totally manual.
It might sound reckless, but that kind of direct manual intervention often gives you the clearest signals, especially early on.
Okay.
Which brings up a really important question. How do you truly validate that need without just hearing what you want to hear? Avoiding those happy ears.
Right, the polite nods.
Exactly. We learned that relying only on, say, friends or super friendly contacts for early usage can give you false positives. They want to be supportive.
Sure.
Instead, you really want to see how many people respond to cold pitches during customer development, especially in B2B.
Okay, so reaching out to strangers.
Yeah. And what's fascinating is that criticism, actual complaints, can be a really good sign.
Really? How so?
Well, if people are complaining, it suggests they actually care enough about the problem you're trying to solve. They might need your product or something like it.
So indifference is the real killer.
Exactly. If they just ignore you, shrug their shoulders, they probably don't feel the pain point you think they do.
Okay, so you're actively seeking genuine reactions, even negative ones, not just politeness. And one key way the sources suggest to pressure test that is focusing on the atomic unit of your product. How does someone starting out distill a big idea down to that?
Yeah, the atomic unit. It's basically the smallest possible interaction or item you can boil your product down to.
Like the core action.
Precisely. For Google, it was a single search query. For Amazon, way back when, just ordering one book.
It's simple.
The idea is pick your biggest, riskiest assumption about what people will do or value.
Okay.
And test just that one thing in the simplest, maybe even the most hacky way possible.
Like a super basic prototype or even just a concept test?
Could be. Force people to pay, either with their time, giving you detailed feedback, or even actual money, however small.
And then what?
Be brutally honest with yourself about why they don't engage or pay. Don't make excuses.
Oof, yeah. That's hard.
It is. But then you iterate based on that honest assessment. This helps you understand the nuance, the details needed for future product building by really watching that core interaction, especially with that high expectation customer.
Got it. Okay, let's shift gears slightly. There's a strong point in the sources about founders needing to sell, especially in the early days. We're talking like $0 up to maybe $5 million in ARR.
Annual recurring revenue, yeah.
Founders must be the ones selling. Why is this non-negotiable? It's not just about the money.
No, it's absolutely not just about the revenue, though that's obviously important. It's about deep, irreplaceable learning.
Okay.
Claire Hughes-Johnson from Stripe really emphasizes this. She says founders just can't miss this period of nailing down exactly who their buyer is and who their decision maker is, realizing they're not always the same person.
Good point.
And matching that input up with who actually controls the budgets inside the prospect's company.
So you learn the internal politics, the real buying process.
Exactly. Trying to delegate that too soon, avoiding that direct interaction, is apparently a super common failure mode. You just lose that critical feedback loop.
You miss the subtleties.
You miss the subtle objections, the real pain points, even the specific language your customers use to describe their problems. That's gold dust you can't get secondhand.
It sounds like the mantra should be speed to $5 hours, not optimize everything perfectly along the way.
Yes, precisely.
Because the sources warn that too many early-stage founders get bogged down optimizing things like sales commission structures way too early.
Oh yeah, happens all the time.
Instead of just focusing on getting deals done and maximizing revenue. Is there a real danger there, getting lost in those operational leads too soon?
Absolutely. In the very beginning, the goal is just get more customers faster, maximize that ARR growth.
Whatever it takes, within reason.
Pretty much. Overpaying a bit on commission for those first few crucial deals, totally fine if it means deals are closing.
Because momentum matters more.
Right, because growth solves most things at that stage. The biggest danger isn't inefficiency, it's optimizing for the wrong thing, like a perfectly efficient sales process for a product nobody actually wants yet.
Okay, makes sense. So founders need to sell. But how do they actually do it when they don't have a big sales team? Or a polished brand? Or maybe even a fully baked product?
Right, it feels daunting.
The answer from the sources seems to be scrappy outreach, which, again, almost sounds too simple. Like, just Google people and call them. Is it really that straightforward?
Well, it can be that straightforward and surprisingly effective. Brett Koff, the co-founder of Remind, is a perfect example.
Okay, what did he do?
He literally Googled teachers who use Twitter, just found them online.
Wow, okay.
Compiled a list of maybe 500 names and then reached out to every single one individually. No automation, just direct outreach.
And then?
He managed to schedule Skype calls or coffee chats with about half of them. And in those calls, he asked just 2 simple questions.
Only 2.
Only 2. And then crucially, he just shut up and listened. Really listened.
That takes discipline.
It does. But that all of the calls approach, that intense period of direct engagement, is absolutely crucial for forming an educated guess about who your ideal customer profile, your ICP, really is.
It's raw, unvarnished learning.
Exactly. Direct from the source.
Yeah.
No filters.
That dedication is incredible. And it ties neatly into this other key idea, problem-centric messaging. It's so tempting, especially when you're excited about your idea, to just rave about how wonderful your product is, all its features.
Of course. You built it.
But the sources strongly indicate it's far more effective, especially early on, to focus on striking a chord with the problem you solve. Why is leading with the solution potentially dangerous?
Yeah, the big danger is falling prey to those happy years again.
Ah, right. Hearing agreement where there isn't really any.
Precisely. You think a prospect is super interested because they're nodding along, being polite.
And
They all have. But maybe they're just being nice, or they don't fully grasp it, or it's not a burning problem for them.
So how does this show up later?
If a sales effort is inefficient because of a happy ears problem, it often shows up in your CRM as closed, lost opportunities that had multiple meetings attached to them. Lots of talk, no deal.
Wasted effort.
Totally. The real goal in those early conversations isn't to sell the product features, it's to validate a real need, a real pain point.
Okay.
Cindy Alvarez has a great point on this. She says, when someone has an out-of-the-ordinary reaction, whether it's really positive or really
That's
negative,
like a strong emotion.
yeah, a strong reaction, that's where the juiciest nuggets are, because that strong reaction indicates you've touched on something that actually matters to them, a real problem you might be solving, or one you're completely missing the mark on.
So lean into the strong reactions. Don't shy away from them.
Definitely. It's about understanding their pain deeply, not just showing off your shiny solution.
There's this interesting piece of advice, too. Ask, why would a customer not want this?
I like that one.
Which is often a far more interesting question than why they would. It feels like actively trying to poke holes in your own value proposition.
It is. It's about stress testing your assumptions. It forces you to confront potential objections head on and understand the real barriers.
Okay, so even though these early deals might feel chaotic, totally seat of the pants.
Which they usually do.
They actually contain the blueprint, the raw material, for future sales repeatability.
Exactly. It might seem messy, but the pattern is in there somewhere. It's actually never too early to start thinking about a sales process, even a basic one.
Why is that?
Because eventually you will hire your first salesperson. And ideally, you want them to walk in knowing there's at least some kind of recipe, however simple, based on what actually worked, not just starting from absolute zero.
Okay, so how do you find that recipe in the chaos? A critical step mentioned is documenting how you close those initial deals. Look for commonalities.
Right. You need to capture what happened.
But how do you document that effectively? So it's actually useful later, not just a random pile of notes.
Good question. It's about abstracting the specifics into something more general. One really useful tool is creating a value-based customer story template.
Yeah, what goes in that?
You identify key things for each successful early deal. Obviously the customer name, but also their qualification criteria. Why were they a good fit? The job title of the person you actually sold to, the champion or decision maker. Their specific pain points before they used your solution, get their exact words if you can.
Crucial.
Then, what specific feature or aspect of your product enabled them to solve that pain? And finally, the quantifiable result. Did they save time, make more money, reduce errors? By how much?
So you're building mini case studies from day one.
Essentially, yes. And this template becomes a repeatable way to communicate value, not just for future sales pitches, but also for your own team, for marketing, for really understanding your product's true impact on that high expectation customer you found.
So the big picture here is, even when you're just starting, scrambling for those first users, every conversation, every small win is a data point. It's an opportunity to learn, refine, and start building a repeatable model for future growth, even if it doesn't feel like it at the time.
You got it. It's about extracting the signal from the noise.
Okay, let's pivot slightly to marketing. The sources draw a really strong distinction here for early stage, especially product-led growth companies. They emphasize needing a growth marketer, someone focused squarely on user acquisition, engagement, retention.
Yeah, the metrics-driven stuff.
And that brand marketing, like big awareness campaigns, is secondary until you've really nailed product market fit. A great product has to be the foundation first.
That's a critical point.
Is it fair to say that early marketing isn't about a building brand in that fuzzy traditional sense, but more about rigorous, almost scientific experimentation to find out what actually moves the needle?
Precisely. It's performance-focused. Sean Ellis, who coined the term growth hacking, has a famous benchmark for this.
Okay, what is it?
He suggests surveying your users and asking how they'd feel if your service disappeared tomorrow. If at least 40% wouldn't be very disappointed.
Only 40%. That feels low.
Well, it's a baseline indicator. If you can't even hit that 40% very disappointed mark, you likely don't have solid product market fit yet.
Interesting benchmark.
And until you hit that kind of threshold, you really should not be dedicating major resources to broad growth activities. The focus needs to stay laser sharp on finding and solidifying that fit first.
So early marketing is very much about experimentation and performance, not just awareness for awareness's sake.
Exactly. Find what works to get and keep users for the product you have, then worry about broader reach later.
This implies prioritizing ruthlessly when you make that first marketing hire.
Oh, absolutely.
The sources note that finding someone who's equally brilliant at product, performance marketing, creative, and comms is basically like finding a unicorn.
Yeah, a rare sighting, as they put it, doesn't really exist.
So you often need to trim that job description way down and prioritize. What should that initial growth marketing focus actually be laser focused on?
The sharpest focus should be on the core growth funnel: acquisition, activation, engagement, and maybe even early signs of virality.
Okay, break that down a bit.
It means understanding and maximizing each step. Like, how do we get qualified people to sign up? That's acquisition. How do we make sure they successfully perform the key action for the first time? That's activation.
Right.
Then, how do we keep them coming back? Engagement. It involves things like optimizing sign-up flows to get high conversion rates, maybe 70, 85%, or reducing friction in the onboarding or purchasing process. It's all about measurable actions that move users through your product effectively.
And it doesn't stop at getting them in the door.
Right.
Retention is key.
Hugely important. Thinking about how to re-engage people naturally. Maybe using smart push notifications or targeted email campaigns to encourage repeat usage or purchases.
So it's a whole system.
It's a whole system. And that's the essential toolkit for an early growth marketer long before you start thinking about spending big bucks on broad brand awareness campaigns.
Okay. Now, speaking of doing more with less, cost-effective growth, the sources highlight content loops as a really accessible strategy, especially for early startups that don't have huge marketing budgets.
Yes, content loops can be incredibly powerful.
It sounds almost like a perpetual motion machine for growth, getting exponential returns from a more linear effort. Is that the right idea?
That's a good way to think about it. A well-designed content loop creates this self-sustaining cycle.
How does it work?
Basically, you create or leverage valuable content. Sometimes it's user-generated, sometimes it's stuff you create that incentivizes sharing or attracts organic traffic.
Okay.
That sharing or traffic then attracts new users. And crucially, you can trace their engagement back, learn from it, refine the product or the content itself, and boost conversion rates further down the line.
So the content feeds user growth, and user activity potentially feeds better content.
Exactly. It can be, as one source put it, a cheaper way to scale up liquidity in the marketplace because they're leveraging the content itself or the user's contributions to drive acquisition.
Urban Sitter was mentioned as a great example.
Yeah, they do this well. They publish articles parents search for, like top 10 questions to ask a babysitter.
Smart.
Parents find these articles via search, land on the Urban Sitter website, maybe read a few helpful posts.
Building trust and awareness.
Right. And then naturally, some of those parents exploring the site convert into actual customers needing a babysitter. The content acts as an organic funnel.
That makes sense. It's providing value first.
Exactly. Another really strong example is Power, which is a marketplace for clinical trials.
Okay. How do they use content?
They focused on building the most informative pages online about very specific, detailed symptoms related to various conditions.
So people searching their symptoms find Power.
Precisely. Patients searching Google for information about their symptoms land on these incredibly detailed pages. This huge wealth of content then acts as a matchmaker, connecting qualified patients with relevant clinical trials listed on their platform.
Wow, that's clever. Using deep informational content as the magnet.
So the general advice is, identify what kind of content would be truly valuable to your target audience. Maybe it's user reviews, maybe it's expert articles, maybe it's data insights.
Find the value.
Find the value, then figure out how to incentivize creating or sharing that content. Find out where your community actually lives online, where they discuss these topics.
Go to them.
Go to them, and then critically trace that traffic. Understand how people arriving via content behave, how well they convert, and use that data to refine both your content strategy and your product itself, especially for those high expectation users.
It definitely sounds like a patient, iterative process, though, not an overnight success thing.
Oh, absolutely not. It requires patience, keen observation, constant adjustment. You're running experiments, essentially. Focusing on the right metrics. Maybe it's organic traffic growth. Maybe it's content share rate. Maybe it's conversion rate from content pages. Using SEO, maybe some targeted influencer outreach to build authority and earn links over time.
Right.
Unlocking the right growth strategy, whether it's content loops or something else, it always takes time and testing. But the content loop, when it aligns well with the product and audience, can be a really beautiful, sustainable engine for growth.
So, wrapping this all up, what does this mean for you, the listener? If you're that aspiring founder or working in an early stage company, it means that early growth just isn't a neat, straight line. It's messy. It's a series of, deep dives into truly understanding your first customers.
Yeah.
It's about selling yourself, putting yourself out there even when it's uncomfortable, iterating super fast based on feedback, and building those foundational marketing loops like content, that can scale later.
I think the absolute key takeaway has to be embracing that scrappy, problem-centric approach. Don't be afraid of the initial chaos or the things that don't scale.
Look for the patterns in the mess.
Exactly. Look for the recipe hidden within it. And always remember, before you even dream of mass adoption, you have to ensure you've built a truly great product. Something that a discerning, high-expectation customer genuinely, deeply needs.
That customer is your true north.
They really are. Get that right, and the scaling becomes much more achievable.
So, thinking about everything we've discussed, what really stands out to you from this deep dive? Maybe reflect on your own nascent idea or your current early-stage company. Are you truly understanding those first few customers beyond just the polite nods? Are you brave enough to make all of the calls, to really listen to those surprising, maybe sometimes uncomfortable nuggets of feedback?
The juicy nuggets.
The juicy nuggets. And are you ready? Are you disciplined enough to document those early wins, however messy they feel, to start creating that blueprint for everything that comes next?
Because that's where it starts.
That's where it starts. The path to scale, the path to building something lasting, it truly begins with these humble, sometimes unglamorous, but absolutely critical first steps.